Welcome to the 2023 Club Umpire Education Program. My name is Mason Ring and I'm an Operations Support Officer and Development Umpire Coach here at AFL North East Border. So this is a session to provide a refresher on the laws of the game for 2023. So the aim of this session is to raise the overall knowledge, interpretation and adjudication of the game in regards to club umpires to make the game flow smoothly. At AFL North East Border, our key values include being professional, so being leaders in the game by being trustworthy, responsible, fair and enthusiastic. We commit to learning and improving our umpiring skills through knowledge, that's by regular attendance and involvement in training and coaching sessions. So like you guys are doing now by attending this session or another session that we've held around you and around your club. Being accountable, so being able to take responsibility for your own performance as an umpire and always looking for opportunities to improve your umpiring and taking on board some feedback from coaches, league appointed umpires and other team members. Commit to working as part of that team and supporting your other club umpire. That's really important that you work together to get the best outcome for the game. And then most of all, we want you guys to enjoy umpiring and your involvement in the game. Being a club umpire, you are a volunteer. So it's really important that you are enjoying being a volunteer with your club and umpiring the game. And as much as you are putting in, we want you to take out from the program as well. So the first thing that we're going to have a look at today is holding the ball. So in terms of a holding the ball decision, there is a number of things that we look at and a process that we go through to come to that final decision. So in previous years, the interpretation of holding the ball has varied slightly. So to go over that, the first part in that decision-making process is deciding, has the player had prior opportunity? So that's going to include, has the player attempted to evade or fend? Has the player had prior option? So if they tried to handball or kick and then decide not to? Are they balanced and steady? Or have they previously been awarded a mark or a free kick leading up to this event taking place? Or have they attempted to drive their head into contact? That's the first thing that we want to decide. So we're deciding right now that the player has the prior opportunity. The next thing we need to ask ourselves is, have they been tackled legally? So if a player has been tackled legally and then they successfully dispose of the ball when being tackled, the correct decision as an umpire, we want to play on. However, if there's no successful disposal when tackled, we want to pay a free kick for holding the ball, prior opportunity. And it's really important that as umpires, that we really communicate that decision and use that language and are really clear in the decision that we're making in regards to holding the ball, prior opportunity. So in this scenario, we're looking at no prior opportunity. So that means that a player's had no prior opportunity to dispose of the ball, or they've been tackled immediately without a prior opportunity. So assuming that that player has been tackled legally, if the tackle dislodges the ball, the correct decision is to play on. However, if the player drops the ball, it's a free kick, holding the ball, incorrect disposal. And again, being very careful about the language that we're using. So if a player makes a genuine attempt in the form of a handball or attempt to dispose of that ball as such, we want to call play on, as they've done everything in their sort of foreseeable power to attempt to dispose of that ball genuinely. If a player is tackled and is able but does not make a genuine attempt, we want to pay a free kick for holding the ball, no genuine attempt. And again, that comes down to using the correct language to actually clearly communicate with players what call we're making as an umpire. The player is tackled and is not able to make a genuine attempt. So the ball is pinned, for example, that would result in the umpire calling the ball up. So in terms of protected area, so other than the player, bringing the football into play, players must make every endeavour to immediately vacate the protected area, as you can see below. This here is a protected area. The player on the mark must be 15 metres from the top of the square. All other players must clear outside this protected area, which is 15 metres from each side of the point post, as well as that 15 metres from the top of the square to make that semicircle. On some grounds, it might be marked with an X, or it might have that semicircle going from boundary line to boundary line. So as an umpire, our job is to have an 80% focus on the player, to look for that play on. So looking for that play on and getting that play on straight away, as soon as that player steps outside the square, or once we're called move it on and then play on, it eliminates us having to penalise and provide a 50-metre penalty. So as soon as we call play on, the protected zone ceases to exist, which means a defensive player may enter that protected zone. So it's really important that we're instructing all players to clear out and do so and make that genuine attempt to clear out. If a player is making that genuine attempt to try and get out of the protected zone, we're not going to penalise them for a 50-metre penalty. However, if a player is just standing there and in there dawdling, in terms of a defensive player, we want to pay a 50-metre penalty for failing to clear out of that protected area. All 50-metre penalties are paid from the top of the protected area, which is 15 metres from the top of the square. Now, a player may elect to stand on that mark. If so, we instruct that player to stand. However, if a player does not elect to stand the mark, they have to come 1 metre behind the mark. And once they do that, they're free to move any form of lateral movement, as well as moving around generally as such. So a team can only be penalised if the scoring team is on their own and doesn't endeavour to leave the area, preventing the kick out occurring or otherwise delays any form of play. So remembering this passage of play is generally over in 6 seconds once the player steps into the square. So that's something to take on board and be always thinking about when am I going to call move it on and what am I going to do when I do call it on. All right. So in terms of the stand rule in the protected area as such as that, so it is 10 metres to each side of the player, both on the mark as well as the player with the football, and then 5 metres behind. So the player electing to stand the mark once stand is called, and we don't want to call stand too quickly. We want to give that player on the mark enough time to set up. They stand. There's to be no illegal movement. So in terms of that, any illegal movement is classified as lateral, backwards, forwards. They may jump up and down. However, they must land from where they took off. And they cannot swap the player on the mark. So once that stand's called, the mark is then fixed. Okay, we will still want to make sure we have that fixed vision and moving between the player on the mark and the player with the football to ensure that we get that play on as quickly as possible, and that eliminates sort of any need to go into further sort of calls in regards to penalising a team. Okay, a 50-metre penalty can be pretty big and it can be a make or break for a club. So we're just going to move on now to dangerous and head-high tackles. So the AFL over the past couple of years have really been emphasising around an umpire's role when it comes to dangerous and head-high tackles. We can't prevent a dangerous or a head-high tackle from occurring, but we can manage that situation and we can enforce the laws of the game to better protect players who are quite vulnerable. So in terms of contact from front on, so if the head is down over the ball and the player is attempting to gain possession, the result will be a free kick for high contact as long as the tackler is on the move. So ducking into that again, if the player elects to drop their head from a higher position, they must successfully dispose of the ball, otherwise that is holding the ball. that attempt to drive, so driving into that, leading with their head, and moving into the tackler, who might be stationary or is near stationary, they must dispose of the ball. Otherwise, as an umpire, our role is to call holding the ball. So if they attempt to shrug, so the tackle around the shoulder area, and the arm pushes the tackle up, we want to call play on. We aren't going to penalise for that. And that's the same as dropping. So at the knees or body to gain head-high contact, we want to call play on. We are not going to penalise for something like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at some examples from AFL field umpire Lee Fisher.
The purpose of the laws of Australian football is to ensure that a match is played in a fair manner and spirit of true sportspersonship, and where possible, in a contact sport, protect players from sustaining injury. While umpires are not responsible for the individual actions of players, we have the responsibility to implement the laws of Australian football, and as such, play an important role in managing the game and deterring or encouraging the actions of players. To support the newly updated guidelines for the management of concussion in Australian football, the AFL has developed this resource to reinforce the vital role you play in managing the game and reducing the risk of concussion. Head-high contact and dangerous play. The AFL supports umpires to take strong action for head-high contact and dangerous play that creates a risk of head injury to a player. This support focuses on using the existing laws of Australian football and the tools currently available to umpires. This includes awarding of free kicks, awarding of 50-metre penalties, order send-off laws, reporting players whose actions constitute a reportable offence. The laws of Australian football that relate to contact that has the potential to cause head injury include making high contact to an opposition player, including the top of the shoulders with any part of the body. High contact is on or above the shoulder and to the head. Any form of contact initiated by an opponent, whether intentional or not, shall be penalised. Bumping or making forceful contact to an opposition player from front on when that player has their head down over the football. Where a player has their head down attempting to gain possession of the ball, bumping or making forceful contact from front on is not permitted. Where the level of force is deemed sufficient by an umpire, the offending player shall also be reported. Striking or attempts to strike an opposition player, whether by hand, fist, arm, knee or head. Striking another player, regardless of force, is not permitted. Any form of such contact, whether intentional or not, shall be penalised. Where the level of force is deemed sufficient by an umpire, the offending player shall also be reported. Executing a dangerous tackle on an opposition player. This resource focuses on the law and interpretation relating to executing a dangerous tackle on an opposition player. The tackle is considered dangerous if the tackle consists of a second action, regardless if the player has the ball or not.
What do you think the team doing wrong?
Dangerous tackle, Sean!
The tackle is inherently dangerous, for example, where a player is lifted off the ground.
King gets back. Slap out from Finlayson. Cunningham face planted with a tackle. That was dangerous. He tried to hunt it down. Robinson the back pedal. Intensity's gone up a bit. Dangerous tackle. It's dangerous tackle. You tipped him.
The tackle is applied with excessive force. For example, the player being tackled is slung, rotated or driven into the ground with excessive force. player being tackled is in a vulnerable position with little opportunity to protect themselves. For example, one or both arms are pinned.
Dangerous tackle, Brisbane. Play on. Try, play on, me. Oh, let it go, let it go, let it go. Hanging dangerous tackle. Get him down. To dangerous tackle. West goes free. West goes free.
Where a player's head strikes the ground as a result of the tackle, a free kick shall be awarded. Where a player is affected by a dangerous tackle, that is unable to immediately take their kick, the offending player should also be reported for rough conduct. For more community umpire training and education resources, visit umpire.afl. Click on the Courses tab and enrol to access the Umpire Training Centre.
Now, for the senior umpires who have joined in, it's probably a good time now for you guys. You can stay if you'd like to. If not, that's it for today's session. However, for the junior umpires, we're now going to look at our blue card for the coach's box rule. So AFL North East Border and the Wangaratta and District Junior Football League is committed to undertaking proactive measures to ensure that the match day environment for all players, coaches, volunteers, umpires and spectators is a positive experience. So just a bit of an overview about the blue card coach's box rule, where unacceptable behaviours are emanating from the coach's box. A three-phase system will be undertaken by the field umpires via the use of blue and red cards to stop such behaviours in real time. So a bit about these phases and what they look like. The first phase will include a warning. At the next stoppage in play, the field umpire will go over to the coach's box within a 25 sort of metre vicinity of that and then display the blue card. The second phase of that is another warning. However, a free kick and 50-metre penalty will be shown, given as such, and then the blue card will be displayed, again from about a 25-metre area. And then going to the third phase, the head coach is reported as well as removed from the game, so that coach is actually ejected. So again, in that situation, a free kick and 50-metre penalty will be applied and the red card will be shown, again from that 25-metre vicinity. So phase one, when a field umpire or emergency appointed umpire hears or observes any unacceptable behaviours at the next stoppage in play, they shall pause the game by blowing their whistle and signalling time, and then move to within 20 to 25 metres of the coach's box and then clearly display that blue card. The field umpire or emergency umpire shall not engage in any conversation when undertaking this process and shall not answer any questions that come from the bench. A field umpire that is not issuing the card shall take control of the football at the spot on the field where the play was paused. Then once the card has been issued, they will recommence the play from where it stopped. There is no on-field penalty for the team that incurred the blue card in phase one. Going into phase two, when a field umpire or emergency appointed umpire again hears or observes any unacceptable behaviours At the next stoppage in play, they'll again pause the game via the use of their whistle and signalling time. And then they'll move to a 25 to 20 metre sort of area from the coach's box and again display a blue card. The field umpire or emergency umpire again won't engage in any conversation or answer any questions from the bench. A field umpire that is not issuing the card shall take control of the football at the spot on where the play ceased, and then issue a free kick and a 50-metre penalty to the non-offending team. The free kick will be given to the player who the field umpire in control of the restart deems the closest to the ball where the play paused. And the third and final stage of this, so again, if a field umpire or emergency appointed umpire observes or hears any unacceptable behaviours for a third time, at the next stoppage, they'll again pause the game through the use of their whistle, as well as calling time. They'll move to, at this time, a 10-metre vicinity of the offending coach's box and then clearly display a red card and verbally advise that coaching box that the head coach or the lead assistant, if the head coach is on the field, is on report and must immediately leave the coaching box. The field umpire or emergency appointed umpire shall not engage in any other dialogue when undertaking this process and shall not answer any questions that come from the bench. So again, the only dialogue that the field umpire or that emergency appointed umpire is engaging in is advising that the head coach or the lead assistant coach is required to immediately leave that coaching box and has been reported. So again, a field umpire that is not issuing the card will take control of the football at the spot on the field where play was paused. So once that field umpire, emergency umpire, observes the head coach or lead assistant coach leaving the coaching box area, they'll move into a position as the non-controlling official. And at this time, the other field umpire will award a free kick in addition to a 50-metre penalty from where the play was stopped. So it'll be again given to the player who the field umpire in control of the restart deems was the closest to where the play was paused. So just to give you a bit of an overview on what we as umpires and AFL North East Board determine unacceptable behaviours. So it's a behaviour coming from the coaching box deemed unacceptable when an umpire observes or clearly hears someone within the area of the coaching box, 5 metres either side and 5 behind, where they're continually questioning or disputing an umpire's decisions, using abusive language or making inappropriate comments to or about the umpires, using inappropriate language or gestures towards or about anyone, including players, other spectators, coaches, officials, umpires, everyone's included under that banner. Speaking inappropriately or aggressively towards opposition players or coaches, behaving in any manner that is socially unacceptable or contrary to the coach's code of conduct and relevant league player code of conduct. In recognising the emotions of being involved in a game of football, as umpires, we need to understand that the coaching box card system is in place to manage repeated instances of unacceptable behaviours, not isolated instances, unless they're excessive or aggressive in the nature of them. So this system, it doesn't override an umpire's ability to report a person on a team sheet at any time during a match. So for example, if an umpire hears someone in the coaching box vilify someone else and they can identify the perpetrator, they should then report that person immediately and take the relevant steps as per the standard reporting process, which is available to you through us. And we will go through at another club umpire session held online, and we'll make that reporting process currently being updated by the AFL and AFL Victoria available to all clubs and club umpires. So as I said, further education will be provided to clubs, umpires, coaches and team officials closer to the season start via an online forum with our regional manager. To wrap up today's session, thank you everyone for your participation in the session. It's great to be able to take this now online and be able to involve as many people as we can. And if you've got any questions at all about the session, please contact me via email as shown on the screen in front of you.